Hello, this is Mr. Phillips, and this video is meant to help you with our ocean unit that we're starting this week, which is April 27th during our at-home learning plans. When we look at the geological features of the ocean bottom, we're looking at those things that are similar to landforms that we see here on land, such as mountains and valleys and canyons. We're going to see things like that underneath the ocean as well. If you've ever looked at the ocean from above, you may notice that near the shoreline, there's a different color. It's usually a lighter shade, like we have over here, than when compared to what you see out deeper in the ocean. Usually you don't see it either where it like goes gradually from one color to the other. You usually see this definite line where it goes from a lighter color to a darker color. There's a reason for that. It has to do with the way that the ocean bottom looks. That lighter blue area would have been right here where we see that it's relatively shallow underneath the ocean. And then as you go deeper, you're going to notice that that's going to be where it turns that darker blue. You will notice that this ledge causes it to turn darker very quickly. It doesn't gradually go down. It's actually a very quick drop off at the edge of that continent. As we're looking at these things, you'll see that there are mountains underneath the ocean. There are going to be things that are similar to the canyons that we have at land. There's going to be mountain ranges. There's going to be a whole bunch of different features that we see that are similar to the features that we see on the surface of the earth. There are a couple of features that you're responsible for knowing with our oceans unit. The first one is going to be that shallow area that's right off the shoreline. That's called the continental shelf. The continental shelf is the area of the shoreline that goes underneath water that's part of the continent. So the continent actually extends underneath the water, and we call that part the continental shelf. The continental shelf is the shallowest part of the ocean. It is also a part where most of the life that's in the ocean lives. So most of the ocean life, about 80%, lives in this area right here or on this top level of the ocean. At the edge of the continent, so at the end of the continental shelf, we're going to see that there's this steep drop-off that causes that color change I was talking about earlier, and that's called the continental slope. The continental slope is a steep drop-off. It represents the edge of the continent, and it goes down to something we call the continental rise. You'll notice that this area that we call the continental rise is an area in which sediment that has fallen off the edge of the continental shelf goes down and collects here. So we have sand and mud and different other components of the ocean bottom that actually falls down and causes this to not be quite as steep as the continental slope. We call that the continental rise. So we have the shallow area of the continental shelf, the steep drop off the continental slope, and then this gradual leveling of sediment that we call the continental rise. Below the continental rise, we have the flat, featureless part of the ocean bottom that we call the abyssal plain. Abyssal means the area of the ocean that we have no light in. So the abyssal plain is the plain or flat area at the bottom of the ocean where there is no light. Now, when we go back to the picture that we looked at earlier, you'll notice that there's not just the abyssal plain down here. There's some areas where we look at mountain ridges. We see individual mountains, and we also see these deep parts that are there. Those all have names as well. When we look at an underwater mountain, we call that a seamount. Any seamount that goes above the ocean water is called an island. We also have a mountain range, so not just an individual mountain like the seamount, but we also have a mountain range in the middle of the ocean that's caused by volcanic activity. We call that the mid-ocean ridge. The deepest part of the oceans are going to be these areas right here that we call trenches. They're called ocean trenches, oceanic trenches, or just trenches. They're all the same. So what information would you need to know for our unit that you would be able to do on a worksheet or something else? Is going to be the following. First of all, you would need to be able to label all of the different components of the ocean. If we look over here, we would have it where this would be the continental shelf. This box would be labeled the continental slope. With this box, since it's extending over here, I would call this the abyssal plain because there's not a continental rise that's actually shown, but you may have a separate box here that would show the continental rise. Here, trenches would be our best answer here. We would have an island here. And then we would probably label this as seamount because it's probably shown here. Anything that I give you is probably a little bit clearer than this one, but this was just an example. So again, this right here would be an island. This right here would be seamount. This one right here would be trenches. This box right here would be abyssal plain. This box here would be continental slope. And the shallow part here would be the continental shelf. You would also need to be able to identify these different pieces of landforms underneath the ocean by just their description. So if I said the shallowest part, that's the continent that extends underwater, you would need to know that that's the continental shelf. If I said the deepest part of the oceans, that would be the ocean trenches down here. If I said the flat featureless bottom of the ocean, that would be the abyssal plain. If I asked you what the steep drop off at the edge of the continental shelf is, that would be the continental slope. So those type of questions you would be responsible for too. All of the activities that I have this week in this mailed home packet are going to have things that are going to help you remember these different parts of the oceans.